And the guy, their eyes would get really big, like, oh my goodness. And I just think that there's some great stories, and there's some great ways to put someone in a place that they never considered. So I love doing that. Love exposing people to aviation in that way.
Yep. And I love that you're saying there's a space for everybody in every. Aviation touches so much stuff. If you want to be in marketing, there's a spot in aviation. If you want to be in law, there's a spot in aviation for law. Technical stuff, literally you can do anything and have it attached to aviation. Hello and welcome to the Business Aviation Collective podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we get a chance to talk to Kellie Rittenhouse. Kellie is the Director of Aviation for Hangar Aviation Management. She was the previous Director of Customer Relations for Pentastar. Also, she was a past chair of the S&D committee in 2004. She's currently the chair of the Michigan Business Aviation Association, and she was also a member of the CAM governing board from 2009 to 2018, so she has a lot of information to tell us. Hi, Kellie, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be able to have this conversation with you. Thanks.
Ooh, excellent. The other way around, because you are really an inspiration to people, especially in the S&D world. Most of our listeners are in the scheduling and dispatch role. And we also a fellow female, which we don't see a lot of DOA that are female yet. So I kind of want to start off the whole conversation is, how did you even get into aviation?
So originally, I was an English education major. I thought I would be a journalist, and then I didn't like writing obituaries and bridal stories because that was part of my first college assignment, and I started pursuing secondary education. And while I was in college, I started working part-time at an airport. And until then, my only exposure to anything aviation was when I grew up on my dad's farm, and we saw crop dusters that were spraying the fields across the road from our farm. So I didn't know anything about it. And when I started working at the airport, I really fell in love with the whole idea of watching people progress through something. I would see people get their private pilot's license, come back, and then, get their instrument rating, their commercial twin, and just watching that whole thing. And I loved the idea of just the continuous improvement. I didn't know that's what you would call it, or goal setting or achieving those things. So I fell in love with aviation. So that's how I got started.
So cool. So the airport you worked at, it sounds like it was a lot of training going on, student pilots.
Yes. And so it was student pilots, and then there would be a number of aircraft owners who were the local successful business people. And then we had a charter company and an air ambulance and a maintenance organization. So sort of all of the different business units of private and business aviation. And I loved those business owners were very active. They were active in the community, and I saw them use their aircraft as tools to grow their business. So that was in Illinois. That was in Bloomington, Illinois.
Yeah, I recognize that. I'm originally from Minnesota, so just a little bit further north there.
Yes, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so after the airport, where did you head? What was your next endeavor?
So after that, I actually met my husband, my now husband. I like to say that I had a job before I met the man, which is true. And he was looking at an opportunity in Michigan, and we got married and moved to Michigan. So I've been married since 1995, and my husband's family actually owned the FBO there. So we're an aviation family. And
yeah.
We came up to Michigan for a 3-year deal. And as I mentioned, that was 27.
You stayed. Oh my gosh. Well, Michigan is beautiful.
It is. And we love it. And I was really fortunate. I had an opportunity to work at a different company, but I took a kind of a step back, if you will, and I started working for then Chrysler Pentastar as a customer service rep. It was a bit of a humbling experience because I'd been selling charter. I'd been doing a number of other things at the company in Illinois. I essentially started over. I felt like I had my foot in the door, and if I could get my foot in the door, then perhaps I could develop my career. And by then, I had become familiar with the schedulers and dispatchers community, and I'd participated in a couple of conferences at that time. And so I was hopeful to keep developing in that way, but it didn't go quickly. Didn't happen quickly.
I have a quick question. I interrupt you for a second, but how did you figure out about a community? Because your FBO went and displayed there, or how did?
I just knew about NBAA, and then I learned about the S&D committee. And actually, I had been working with a couple of other companies as their charter contact, and they were involved with, and they were going to. But this was really early in the S&D world too. And so that's how I found out. And then I went there to meet some of these people that I was talking to on the phone. And it turned out to be such a great opportunity for me because I was really young and I was really new and I didn't know how to do certain things, but I met these people who did, and they were willing to help me. And so I used that opportunity to say, oh, wow. So now I can connect with someone out east and they go to Mexico. And now what my company, we're going to do that. And so that was where I thought, these are the people who know things. Like, I want to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. I think that an overlooked gem sometimes when people come into the industry, like you just really don't understand. Maybe you start working, or at least I started working at an FBO. I didn't really realize how large this community was. And as soon as we went to that S&D, that first show, I was like, oh, now I get it. This could be, this is a career. It's not just.
Right. Well, and one of the other things, and I think that there are companies who've done this better than others, is that they realize your customer, if you're an FBO and you send people to an S&D or, the S&D, your client is in the room in the training sessions. Those sessions are for everyone who attends. So as an FBO CSR, I can go and sit and learn alongside my client and meet them and interact. And then that's where you forge these relationships that ultimately are so beneficial, both personally, professionally, and help you develop. And so as I would move into like leadership roles on the committee, I always wanted to make that really clear. Hey, the sessions are for everyone because there's only so much of a training budget for any company. And if an FBO is going to bring people, you should train your people as well. I've always looked at an FBO as an extension of our flight department, and I want them to provide the same level of service. I want them to do the right thing for our people as we would do that. But if you don't sit together and you don't train together and you don't talk about these things, how do they know what that is? Right. And so that's like soapbox for Kelly that she would get the fun to talk about that. But I think it's very important, and wisely, there are companies who've done that better than others, and they're more successful in delivering great customer service.
Sure. Yep. Go on and getting the information from one of the proverbial horse's mouth.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I like to tell fun stories about when I've presented at different places to an FBO owner. I would say, hey, you should call your people and ask them, hey, who's the best flight department on the field, or who's the best FBO on the field, and see what they tell you. Go see what they will say. And do you know what people are saying about you? We had a situation one year when I was at Pentastar, and a guy was texting in and he asked the tower where you should go.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, you should go back there because they actually do a better job and, have an awareness. I don't think that's really supposed to be how it's done, but the guy asked a question, and then he called the FBO closest, and the person that answered the phone said, "Oh yeah, you should find out what people are saying."
Yeah, definitely. Do the research.
After I came to Penistore. I was there for 18 months, and I realized, like, if I stayed, I wasn't going to be moved into a charter sales role because I didn't meet a qualification. I hadn't finished my bachelor's.
Oh, no. Interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. And lifelong learner. And I was very frustrated. I was in the process of doing it, but I had not finished. And I thought that there was another reason. I thought there were some other considerations, and I didn't meet the requirements. And there was an opportunity for me to go across the field and act as the scheduler for another private flight department.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, and I left here. And almost immediately after I left, there was an opportunity for me to come back and be the crew scheduler. And so during the year that I was away, I saw that there were opportunities, scholarship opportunities with NBAA, and I applied for a scholarship and won a scholarship. So I finished my bachelor's because that was on my list. And then I went back to Pentastar, and I was the crew scheduler. And then about that time is when I joined the committee. And cheering. And then that would become an even more important part of my career path because of all the people that I met and how I was able to network within the industry and meet some amazing people who to this day are very dear friends of mine, and then start pursuing other opportunities. So I had an opportunity while I was the chair of the S&D to go to Darden. So managing the aviation function. At that time, they were giving the chair, there was an opportunity to go on behalf of. And so I said yes. I think it's important to say yes. I was scared. I thought it would be really hard. It was, and it was really great. Again, I met some great people in the industry who had different backgrounds than I did. And I was able to form some friendships that when we did our small group work, that we were still, that, it was really fun to do, and that I would still know them today.
That's great.
Really, really fun. And I just think that you have no idea when you start out with something like what might be available to you just on the other side of a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think, saying yes is a big part of my mantra, and staying curious. I'm very curious. I'm interested in everything that people, what they do and how they've built their businesses, whatever type of business. I find it fascinating. And I have a great deal of respect for people who will kind of go out on a limb, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Not unfamiliar to you, right? Advice. Sure. That's, I think it's great.
I love that mantra of saying yes. And I think you're right. You just don't know what can happen when you say yes. And I mean, I would be willing to bet that 99% of the time it's going to teach you something along the way.
Yeah.
So maybe the opportunity doesn't come out with you making $1 million or something. Fine. But you're going to learn something in the process.
Exactly. And that's just more important. And developing who you are and who you are as a person, and your own personal brand and reputation, what people think. And I mean, I haven't always gotten it right. Please, I want to say that. Like, I've made my fair share of mistakes. When I did not get the charter sales role, I was mad. I kind of kicking the dirt, because someone got an opportunity that I didn't think that this person deserved the opportunity. I did, because I brought a book of business and I could tell you all the reasons that I deserved it. And then I found out that this particular individual was not treated well in the company. She wasn't treated well. And I called her one day and I said, "Hey, I just want you to know you took my job. That's my job."
Okay.
It's okay. can I help you with anything? Because I know you're new in this part of it. And it was funny because that was the beginning of a great friendship. And
Oh, interesting.
the beginning of me learning something about things are not always as they seem. And perhaps I was being very short-sighted and admitted that, yeah, she was every bit, if not more deserving of the position and so it that was a good lesson for Kelly to learn earlier on in her career.
That
And
got to have been a hard phone call to make too. That takes guts
yeah,
to make a phone call like that.
I heard though, kind of through the grapevine that it wasn't going, and I didn't think it was right. And I wasn't sure had I been at the company still, would I have contributed to the right thing or would I have been a naysayer? And I mean, my feelings were hurt. I was pouty, because I didn't get the opportunity. But then what ended up happening is later I would come back and then we would get to work together and we would form this friendship, right? That was really important. And it helped me learn more about someone who didn't look like me or grow up like I did. And I was from a really small farming community and this was all new. And so it was good experience.
That is cool.
And yeah. So then I stayed and I did all of the crew scheduling, and then I would earn my dispatch license at that time. And then the company was sold, and Mr. Ford, Etzel Ford II, purchased the company from Daimler Chrysler Aviation. And then when he did that, he asked me to go back into the Flight Ops Center, and I ran the Flight Ops Center for a few years. And then I moved into a liaison role with the between the owner services, some people like, and it was a lot of fun. And I had a team. We did that. It was a lot of fun. It was hard because that was all problems. But if I would come outside, people would say, "Why is Kelly here? Is there a problem?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to come out and say hello more often." It's not a problem. The minute I did, or it might have been a problem, right? A challenge. I think everything's a challenge, not. And what are some of our solutions? And then I moved into the Director of Customer Relations and I did training. I trained all of Pentastar's employees. I was part of that. They joked and they called it Kelly's Smile class, and everyone had to participate in that. But it was great. We learned about communication styles and communication skills. And I've always said that at my heart and my core, I take plain PLANE language and turn it into PLAIN language, because you're talking to people who are not sophisticated in our aviation acronyms, and they're the end users, right? And so that's been my view all along. And while that was all happening, there was this opportunity on our field, and I was trying to help the individual put together a team and build this flight department. And so I was actively I'm like, well, this would be a really good person to do this, or because I really identified with Pentastar and I loved working for Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford was my keynote speaker, general session speaker in 2004 when I led the committee, and we were in Savannah for our conference, and it was a first citywide conference. And unbelievably, that will be 20 years ago.
Wow, 20 years
20
ago.
years.
Hey, I think I was there. I think I listened to that one because I was in Georgia.
Okay.
I would have been living in Atlanta, and Savannah is close by, and probably went to some of it. Like, we would tag team, but yeah, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a while.
I don't know how it happens, but it did.
Right? I don't either.
Yeah. That was really special to me. And it was great because he acknowledged the role that the scheduler and dispatcher can play in an organization and how they care for and about and look at the smallest of details and are the fixers and are really the heartbeat of a flight department. And I still feel and believe that. Through different parts of my, career, I would always see these opportunities to continue to learn and then perhaps continue to challenge myself. And I would think about it with the scheduler and dispatcher in mind. So that's what happened when I decided to pursue my CAM. And at the time, there weren't a lot. I think Wendy Gavigan was the first scheduler who received her CAM. And I thought, Wendy's great, and there needs to be more of us, right? And so I had been the chair of the S&D committee, and then I mentioned to a few people. So this is a good tip or a scary tip. Tell your friend. Accountability partners. Yeah. And then that's what I did. So in 2006, I sat for the camp. And it was in Florida at Orlando. And at the time, they were still doing paper tests. This was the last paper test. And I went in this room, and I kid you not, Lindsay, I looked around, and there were leaders, industry leaders in the room. Pete Agar, the Van Allen Group, founder of Van Allen Group, was in the room taking his PAM. Wow. And I looked around and I thought, what are you doing here? And I sat down and I read the first 5 questions on the test. And I was like, I cannot do this. I don't know these answers. What? I wonder if they've had anyone who just put the pencil down and walked up and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to do this. And then I just said, okay, calm down. You have a plan. Stick to your plan. Yep. Follow your plan. And my plan was to use the entire allotted time, not look to my left or right, and didn't matter who was in the room, just focus on and take the test. And that's what I did, and I passed. And I promise you, I will never take the test again. I will maintain my status. Oh, yeah. And you're not crowned, Pam. It is an opportunity to continue to learn. It's an assessment, right? It's an assessment, and it says that you have learned, and it just, that's what it is. And then it's the license to continue to learn and to keep developing. And so that's why I encourage more people to pursue. And now we've got great things like 6 months to CAM, and there are formalized study groups. There are better opportunities. And I see that as just such a great thing for the industry to have more engaged, more widely read, studied individuals who can participate. And I think that will help us bring leaders with different backgrounds to the role of the director, to the VP role, to whatever the leadership role is in a flight department. And I think we will all be better for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yep. You can get technicians, you can get CSRs, anybody who wants to can put in the time, study. I hear that 6 months of CAM program is awesome. I keep seeing more and more people applying for it and getting and passing. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many people, do you know how many CAMs there are total right now?
I believe there are over 400. I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
And it's still a small number. Mm-hmm. Though it's nice to have that behind your name because it really shows you've put some time and effort into it.
Right. I think it does say that you continue to develop. You're not stagnant. People will notice that, right? It doesn't mean, and I early in the program, I would say that people had a different idea, perhaps, that it meant you were, like I said, you're not crowned, Cam. That it had a different meaning, but really it is. It's all about then the continuing to learn. And when I was elected to the camp governing board, I remember one of the first meetings, I was the only, I haven't mentioned this, but I'm not a pilot. Mm-hmm. I'm not a pilot. And so people looked at me like, how'd you get here? Mm-hmm. And then I would say, let me tell you why it's important how I got here. Some days that's really intimidating. That's challenging to be in a room with other people who have had a very different path and who have very different skills. And I still think that it takes all of us to, run a successful organization.
Definitely. I think that makes you even more unique, actually. And I just think more of an inspiration for people because not a lot of female DOAs, even less that are not pilots. In fact, the only two that I've really worked with are both pilots. So that seems to be, at least historically, the common pathway is to pick a pilot. So no, I think it's awesome. It allows anybody in any position to say, well, if she did it, I can do it.
Right. I think also the idea I hope I bring to the table is that we are a customer service organization. We're customer driven. Our purpose is to provide a service, and our tool happens to be aviation, not the other way around. Often it seems that we get caught up in being the aviation department or the airplane and the flight aspect. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away anything from what it is we do, but we're here to serve either the high net worth individuals or the corporations or, the owners of the aircraft and however they choose to structure an organization. And so having that as a mindset was very important to me. And I thought, if I ever have an opportunity to build something and help put my fingerprints on it, I want to shape it in that way so that we don't have that thinking that, oh my goodness, we're so important and we are sort of in some places secret, nobody wants to know about, or only a privileged few. I think that's hurt our industry over the years because we've lost sight of why we exist, right? And what it is that we bring and the value that we add. In some places we don't want to talk about the fact that we have this equipment, but a manufacturing company is happy to talk to you about the equipment that they have that is manufacturing their product, right? Right. We're making businesses more efficient and we are more we're cutting edge with our technology and what we're doing in sustainability and how we are serving others in very underserved and underrepresented parts of the world and helping them. Like there's so much to be proud of, but it's all in how you approach it. So I hoped that if I could do something, that I could approach it like that, and that I could also say, these are the people around me who have helped me achieve those goals or achieve these opportunities. And then, my goodness, I just need to give back because I would never have been able to do this on my own, right?
Without support. I really love that angle and way you're thinking. And I wanted to ask you, in fact, about what you had said a little bit earlier. You talked about being trained. You were the training manager and you brought all of the training to Pentastar. Now, currently, like, what if anybody wanted to learn more about customer service? Are there any classes out there, or like, where do we go to learn that if our internal department perhaps doesn't provide it?
I have a couple of friends in the industry, and we think maybe we need to be doing more of that. So can they stay tuned for?
Yes, definitely. Okay, that's cool.
You are linking resources and opportunities to your collective and looking for ways to influence and, give people some opportunities. But simply, I personally am part of a couple of different groups, one being a book club. I'm just introducing one here in our flight department, trying to use a resource that we can have a shared platform and the language, talk and trying to implement. We're looking at some of Dr. Tony Kern's work from a safety standpoint. I think that those are ways to infuse conversation and challenges to each other. I just did a PDP class with NBAA in Las Vegas, and it was a great opportunity. It was for gold. So I'm a gold cam because I have been a cam since 2006. And they introduced a class, and it was sort of a beta test that was paired the gold cams with some of the 40 under 40. It's very cool. Yeah. I'm telling you, it was so wonderful. And it was very selfishly, I wanted to participate because I really wanted to hear and learn. I'm fascinated about cross-generational teams and how to best relate to one another and what we can learn from each other in an open and a very educational environment. Like what is important to these different individuals and, coming from different backgrounds. So that was fantastic. So I think there are a number of opportunities. And then, like I said, I think often maybe that's going to be in part of my next chapter. I'm not done with aviation by any stretch, but I love that training aspect and I love the mentoring role and being both a mentor and mentee. So, yeah, those are things that I would look for.
Okay, definitely. I'm always out there looking for more training that we can do. Because I think, like you said before, you got to keep continuing to learn. And I've done some of the recurrent classes, which are great, but now I'm looking for more. I'm excited to hear there's more.
Plus the latest, John, I think I mentioned I was reading a book from John Acuff, and he does a number of different, he's had both training and books, and he's a speaker. I'm doing one right now called Distraction and then Focus. It's both. It's about focus. And it's fascinating. And I like that I can do an online learning. I can do something, maybe a lunch and learn. We do some of those things that are not aviation specific, but I definitely want to continue to build on just being a better human being. And I get so busy that I am distracted and I don't always listen as well as I could. And so some of these things are really challenging to me and then trying to apply. So if you can have a small group or people that you might have on your board of directors, if you will, your personal board of directors, and you can get people to, I think that's a great way as well.
Great suggestion. Yeah, that book club, I think that's really helpful. Like you said, whether in aviation or outside of aviation, read more, learn more. I'd like to switch a little bit over to all of the volunteer work that you've done over the years. Obviously, you were chair 20 years ago, but you had to have started your volunteer work before that because that would have led up to your chair. Now you're the chair of the Michigan Business Aviation Association, which is it's one of the larger regionals. Tell us about volunteering. What does it mean to you? Why is it important?
I think it's very important when you hear someone ask, and actually someone did just ask this, what are we going to do about fill in the blank? When someone asks that question, it does something in my brain and it says, what are we? And I just replace that with what am I? Because I don't know who we is. I don't know who they are. I, in the sense of those large, what are we going to do? Or what are they going to do? And you're pointing like that. There's usually some kind of a negative. I'm not a negative connotation. And so I think if I have an opinion, we should have action. Yeah. And just get my hands and feet involved. And I believe you start local. I think grassroots is really important, and to know what's happening in your community, whether that is walking across the driveway to your neighbor and meeting them and helping them with something. I mean, I think we've just lost a lot of connection, and it was really exacerbated by the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so missing that was really difficult. I just see that there are opportunities. And so it is a little bit about that. What am I going to do? So that's always been something. I think I saw my dad serve on a school board. My mom was involved with all of our activities. I was very involved in high school and college in different clubs and sports or just teams and working and volunteering and try to make a difference so that I know that at the end of the day or a semester or a year or something that I did something. Now I don't know if it moved the needle significantly. I just know that I participated. And if you don't participate, then you don't really get to complain. You don't. No. Very true. I just think that was instilled in me when I was young, and I sometimes overdo it because I overextend. John Acuff tells me that I have a bigger imagination than my calendar.
Yeah.
And so I feel yep. I think that was from him, and I would agree. It still doesn't give me an excuse or a pass to sit it out and not do something.
I just love that, have a solution. If you're going to have a complaint or something that you don't think is going well, have a solution to how you can make it better. And then, like you said, do it. It is up to all of us.
From the aviation and a community relation effort, one of my favorite things to do is host a group of Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts at the airport and give them a tour. And we would start in the FBO. I did this a lot at Penn Star. And I was always very mindful of who was in the audience, because typically I would have the kids and their parents. And I would think, I'm going to really leave them with something to think about today when they go home. So the kids, I would ask them at the beginning. I said, I'm going to ask you a question at the beginning, and then we're going to come back. And I'm going to ask it again. And I would say, we'd see an airplane out on the ramp. How many people do you think it takes to fly that airplane? And, I know, 2, 2 pilots. I'm like, okay, that's a very good answer. Now, let's remember that. And then I would take them on the tour, and we would go through everything. And we would talk about the CSRs and the line service techs and the scheduler, and the maintenance and the record keepers and the accountants and then I would also be thinking about the parents, and I would say about the parents, these trips, it looks and sounds like it's really glamorous what they do, but I'll tell you, they leave here at night after everybody's having dinner with their families, and they take off, they fly all night, they go to a meeting perhaps in a foreign country, but as soon as they land, it's a shower and it's a meeting, and then it's back, they're missing soccer games and they're missing out, and so you're like trying to paint a true picture of what does happen. And of course, there are always stories of whatever, the bad cat, all of the, fun sound bites, but day in and day out. And so when we would tour around and we would, look at everything, and then we would come back to our starting point, and I would say, okay, guys, how many people do you think it does take to fly that plane? And we'd have a different answer.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing for everybody. If you're interested in this or you're interested in that. And I would tell them a story about a guy that I met on his first flight. He wanted to be a pilot. All he wanted to be was a pilot. And he went on as a introductory flight, and he got so airsick. And he couldn't. It was horrible. And when they landed, and I remember that day, and now I will tell you that he is a senior captain for a commercial airline. He spent time in Hong Kong. He spent time in a training center. Whatever. He spent time. But that first day, he didn't think he would ever have a second day. And the guy, their eyes would get really big, like, oh my goodness. And I just think that there's some great stories, and there's some great ways to put someone in a place that they never considered. So I love doing that. Love exposing people to aviation in that way.
Yep. And I love that you're saying there's a space for everybody in every aviation touches so much stuff. If you want to be in marketing, there's a spot in aviation. If you want to be in law, there's a spot in aviation for law. Technical stuff, I mean, literally you can do anything and have it attached to aviation.
Yeah. And that's also why when I work, like Michigan Business Aviation, we're really involved with the college students and wanting to help with workforce development. And also, with our legislative, the legislators feel that it's really important to talk about job creation and workforce and keeping people in Michigan and how that looks. And when we go to say Western Michigan, I think it's important they're so exposed to the commercial airlines. And I think there have been times where we've had a bit of a war about talent. And it's true. Some people are better suited for the commercial airlines. And by the way, I travel on them a lot. So I prefer to have really competent and capable those roles, as well as those who will come and join our companies. And so I think that it's really great if you can find the right fit. So it's nice to be able to talk to people early on and talk about what is important to you and what is it that you like to do. Not one is great and another isn't, but to have this collaboration, and it's harder perhaps to do. I think we have healthier organizations though when you have people doing what it is that they really want. I saw that as a crew scheduler. A lot of times people wanted the bigger type rating, bigger aircraft, because that meant maybe status or it meant more money. It had a different assignment. Yeah, when you would have those two things that weren't compatible, or what was important to someone at that stage of their life, that's really challenging. And so I like to challenge people to think about, what is it that you really want? It's not always about the bigger, further, right?
Sure. Like, so you're talking kind of somebody who's looking at a long haul aircraft, bigger aircraft, but then you're going to be gone for, could be a couple of weeks at a time. Maybe you're at the stage where you have small kids at home or something and you need to maybe do the day trips or the one overnight.
Yeah. So I think that's part of what I bring to my role, because I can ask those questions. I can maybe outline those scenarios and say that it's okay to be honest about what's important to you and to your family. And it's okay for you to be honest with that as well. And it's not perhaps some of the traditional. In our company, any of the aircraft are as important as another, because we'll have our owner on any one of them. And so I don't necessarily look at the equipment as much as driving what the pay is versus what the, just being here. My boss had told me that we all want to sit at the cool kids table. And by virtue of joining this team, he said, you're at the cool kids table. So now don't worry about that. Just do a good job and go out there and take care of our people and our equipment. And that's a nice spot.
Yeah, it sure is. Sounds like you have a really good team.
I do. Yeah, we do. We do. And it's been challenging. And there are days that it's still challenging because we're starving. And you've got a great team.
That is so cool. I want to go back to something that you told me even before the call. We just chatted a little bit. And you said something, but I wrote it down because I thought it was really cool. And you said, lead well where you are. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit more about that. Lead well where you are.
Many times you're in a role where you have no named authority, and we all have authority to influence up into a management perhaps situation, or we have people who report to us. Leadership isn't positional by title only. I believe that it is incumbent upon all of us to lead where we are. And that was one of the things I tried to talk to the CAM governing board to people about that, because there early on there was pushback that the only person that should be a CAM was the leader in the organization. And then that I would challenge, and I would say, well, you have others and you have people who are you're developing into leaders. Well, if we do this, then they're just going to change jobs. And I said, not if you are developing a great culture and a great organization, they'll help you lead better, and then let them lead where they are and develop their skills. Sure, some may leave, others may stay and become just invaluable in your organization. So I think that's and that's something I would encourage someone to do if they get really discouraged or they don't see like a career pathway, or maybe if you don't even know what it is you want to do, because as you mentioned, sometimes we don't see this as a career progression.
Right.
And I've been at 2 companies now that I've been with them for a longer period, and I've held different positions within the organization at different times, and just tried to do my very best in whatever role I was assigned.
Yeah, your very best. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to bring back one more thing that you said prior. And we were talking about volunteering at that point. And you said volunteering can be a safe place to fail. Yeah. Could you talk to me more about that?
Especially for me in the schedulers and dispatchers community. This was maybe one of my first opportunities to be leading or be a part of a committee made up of so many different, a lot of type A leaders. Yep, so we get stuff done. They're trying to figure out how to negotiate that space, and people knew you were there because you cared. And so maybe you didn't get something exactly right. There was a lot of grace that could be extended. And then if I had an opportunity to do something and it didn't go quite right, like that failure wasn't so devastating. I didn't lose my job. I might have had to come back and offer an apology for how I phrased something, or that I misunderstood, or, so in that regard, that was a great place. Those are great places to stretch those muscles and to try something, or yes, does this work? Or how would you, or ask someone, I thought and you maybe get some just good review or input from someone that you trust. And that was a great place to do it. Because again, you have the same, I wasn't competing with someone for position on the committee. I was already there. Again, you're already at the cool kids table. So now, how do you make this better? There's nothing that delights me more than to see how the conference and the community has grown, and what they've taken on, and how it's so much better, like every year, outdoing some part of it, and not because it's competitive, but because it's passionate people that want to serve well. And so again, I think it's a really great way to get involved and a great place to just feel safe.
Yeah. Try something out.
Start, using words like, well, this is an experiment. I'm going to experiment with this, because an experiment is an experiment. And so that was a good place to see that. I don't know if anybody's going to like that or not. So and I'm someone who, from the very beginning, I've been a quote soft skills person. I've felt very strongly that the quote soft skills that are not considered soft skills anymore were really important. So I would advocate for another communications class, or something. Yeah. And I believe that was the right thing then, and it still is today. And again, those soft skills aren't so soft as we've learned over the years, right? And that's good.
That's awesome. So being that volunteering is such a huge piece of your whole career, and what if you're kind of new, or maybe you haven't volunteered before? How would you suggest we get into it?
So the Michigan Business Aviation Association is going to have some events this year in March. We have an event March 15th that will be a workforce development type event. And the next day, there's going to be a women career aviation symposium. I think that's the acronym. And we are supporting that. And both of those have opportunities I've said to people, come in and help pick up the chairs and move a table.
Yeah.
Right? Like, be the person who says yes, or be the person who will do something that no one else wants to do. That's how I've been successful. Whether it was cleaning up after a student event at my church, or being a volunteer to, do some, I don't know, but just like the littlest of things. And then you meet someone, and then you were seen as somebody who would do something. Just, getting your hands on. And there's so many opportunities for like scholarships too. I know that we talk about continuing education, and if money is not available, there are scholarships, or there may be a person that's willing to sponsor. Like, if there is someone who would like to go to the Women Career Aviation Symposium and they can't afford the entry fee, just let me know. I'll help them.
Okay, great.
Because it's a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be excellent. I love all of that. I really try and participate in like the WCA and WAI. You know what I did in Vegas? The WCA group had a booth, and they were looking for volunteers to just man the booth. And I was like, well, I don't know how I don't know how good I'd be at that, because I haven't been with WCA for a long time. But that was probably my favorite part of the whole show. I got to go spend 2 hours talking to other women who are in corporate aviation and having conversations. So yeah, any little place that you can hop in could give you an experience that you weren't even expecting.
I got a young woman right now that is going to help us with our social media and help us update all of our information on our website, because we are volunteers, and I do have a day job, and it is important. Again, that whole idea of my imagination is bigger than my calendar.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might be able to see something and there's a problem you could solve. And you could say, did you ever consider? And then that's usually how you get an opportunity. And then that exposure, right? And to not be afraid, because I think in some of those places where you volunteer, again, if you think about the idea that we all have a similar goal, that being helpful is just not helpful. It's not always the same type of competing for a job or being looked at in that regard. And so that's a nice entry into a network, and then just continue to build that network.
Yeah.
So
it changes up kind of the environment away from the competition to we're all moving towards the same goal. I like that. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, Kellie, it has been so great speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time and inspiration, not only on the podcast, but in general in what you do on an everyday basis. It's wonderful. If anybody wanted to reach out to you perhaps and ask you more questions about your path, how would they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to get an email or call. My information is there, but my email is Kellie, Kellie, at Hangar, HANGARMGT.com. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation. And I do just want to really encourage people, as you navigate your career and you see opportunities and you see that there might be something that you could offer, I think it's important to get a seat at that table. And I have said in the past that sometimes you have to bring your own chair, and that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Right? And that you show up to make a difference and to make an impact. You don't have to become the leader, the named leader at that moment. You can share your ideas, your energy, your enthusiasm, and it is valuable. You as an individual are valuable. And I just look forward to having some of your listeners doing more. And if I can help with that in any way, then I have been successful, because it's really just about giving back to people who taught me over the years.
Wonderful. That's so great. Well, I hope people definitely take you up on your offer to talk and chat and get some advice. And again, thank you so much, Kellie. And I hope to have you back on the show again soon.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.